Hello, everyone. Good day, good morning, good evening, good night, wherever you are in the world. I'm here, of course, in beautiful Canada, approximately 2 hours north of the amazing city of Toronto, the 6th. This is November 11th. This is Remembrance Day in Canada and Veterans Day in the United States. So, thank you to all who have served and all who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for serving. So we celebrate this on both sides of the border today. So again, thank you for your service for all currently serving, and of course, we honor those who made the ultimate sacrifice and those who have served previously in many conflicts around the world. So thank you. So today, on a happy note, despite the somber day, this is my aspirational to be read list for science fiction and fantasy, specifically for traditionally published books for next year, 2026. So I plan to do two of these videos. The first one for traditionally published books that I want to read in 2026. The second one for indie books, small press that I want to read in 2026. Again, I'm going to say the caveat I always say with these videos. I have my own reasons for separating these lists. I just want to make it clear that I believe books are books, whether they're traditionally published or self-published. The manner in which a book is published has no bearing whatsoever on how well it's written. I only separate my traditionally published books from my indie books typically, so I can shine a light on more books, and especially for the indie side. Indie is this burgeoning, amazing, cutting edge part of the writing world. And, especially when I make top lists, if I just took from one or the other, I feel I'd be excluding a lot of really good books. If I made a top list, let's just say that year most of the books happen to be indie, then I'd be missing out on top about some great traditionally published books, and vice versa. So that's the reason why I make these two separate lists. It has nothing to do with how good either one of these types of the way, the venue, milieu in which you publish are. It's just to get more books in there. So I made these separate lists. This one is for trad, and I will do one for indie. Now, again, as all TBRs, it's aspirational. I hope to get to these books. I think I've set myself some realistic targets this time. I think better than I have in the past. There's years where I've been really good with TBRs, and I've essentially lived up to my promise and read almost all, if not all, the books on my TBR. And there's years I haven't been that good at keeping those promises or those plans. Life happens. You can't be too hard on yourself about it. We all, I think a lot of us, especially as writers, we strive for continuous improvement and we strive for perfection. We fall short, you aim for the stars, right? In any case, I'm really excited about 2026 for reading. Again, I've tried to set some more realistic goals. I didn't read a lot in 2025. 2025 is almost done. And I think I will probably squeeze maybe one more book in. Now, mind you, the books I'm reading in the last part of 2025 are chonkers. They're pretty big books, pretty hefty books. But I feel that my targets for 2026 are far more realistic. I still have a lot of arcs from amazing authors that were so kind to send me electronic copies of their books. I really need to get to those. Those, of course, are not included in any TBR list. It's kind of like as soon as I get to them, I get to them. But, I do plan to read all the backlog of arcs that people have been so kind to send me. I'm so honored, so privileged when someone sends me one. So authors out there, fellow authors who send me an arc, believe me, I will get to it. I'm just behind. But part of the reason why I'm, shortening the amount of books, the list of the books I plan to read next year, so I can get to those arcs, and also so I can read books on my shelves. I think you've heard this from a lot of booktubers. booktubers with these massive TBRs, we keep buying more books when we already have books on our shelves that are unread. We unhaul certain books because we think either, we won't get to them, despite the fact that at some point that book really attracted us. That shiny, beautiful cover sitting there in the bookstore, or when you're browsing through Amazon or wherever you buy your books, and you're like, oh, I got to have that. And you buy it and you really plan to read it and you don't get to it, or perhaps, especially if you're a mood reader, the mood it's not the right time for the book, whatever the reasons are. A lot of us have tons of unread books on our shelves. I am no different. I am no better, certainly, than anyone else in that regard. I really feel guilty about the fact that I have tons of books on my shelves that I haven't read, that I've always planned to get to. Well, this is the time. So that is why everything on these two TBR lists that I'm going to make are unread books that have been on my shelf for a while. And it's pretty well the entirety of them. So the traditionally published list that I'm going to do now, that's pretty well the entirety of the traditionally published science fiction fantasy books on my shelf that I can read that are unread. Now, I have some issues, of course, because I've gone out and there's been a book sale and I've picked up, a book 2 or 3 in a series, and I don't have the book 1. And that's sitting on my shelf. Well, I can't get to buy the book 1. But if I'm not buying any books right now, if I'm focusing on finishing the ones I already have, then those books have to sit. So there may be about 7 or 8 books on my shelves that it will take a while to get them, because I actually have to buy the first, the second, the third book in that series in which that book is a part. Excuse me. So that's just to clarify what's going on. So again, these are books that were already on my shelf, books that are unread. And once I read these, if I can get to them this year, 2026, the upcoming year, that will pretty well take care of my unread books for traditionally published and for self-published science fiction and fantasy. And I think that's a huge accomplishment. So that's what I'm shooting for. Will I get there? Between the traditionally published books and the self-published books, we're still looking at least 50 books. And that's not including all the arcs I have to read that I want to get to that are backlog. That would be another 10 to 15, maybe 20 books. So that's still, if I read everything I really plan to read, that would still be a lot of books and probably be a high reading year for me. The higher reading years I've had are closer to 100 books. But if I read everything that I plan to read that's unread on my shelves, that maybe 60 books, 70 books, that would still be a lot. And that's not counting, let's face facts. Somewhere along the way, I'm going to go to a book fair. I'm going to pick up a book here or there. I'm going to, do a book exchange with an author that I meet, and, we're interested in other's books and we swap. And so, things can change. Again, this is aspirational, but this is what I want to read. Science fiction and fantasy, traditionally published books in 2026. And I'm going to start with my most anticipated books, plural, that I want to read that are traditionally published in 2026. And why I say books, plural, normally be one book that I would talk about, but it's because it's from my favorite author. Now, these books are 2 of them are part of a series. One is a standalone. And of course, if you've been watching the channel at all, you know that my favorite author is none other than the esteemed Janny Wurts. Just an incredible person, a warm, wonderful, amazing human, and an absolutely incredible author. I plan to read everything she writes. I will be working through her backlist over the next few years until I have read everything she writes. Of course, I have read her magnum opus, The Wars of Light and Shadow. That is my favorite science fiction and fantasy series of all time, period, whether irrespective of how it's published. It is published traditionally, but irrespective of any book published in any venue, that is number 1. So, and I can't see anything dethroning that anytime soon. So again, Janny Wurts is my favorite author, and I did not, this is not an idea originated by me, so I can't take credit for it. I can't remember who at the moment coined this phrase or came up with this idea, but the concept was to devote January of whatever month to reading Janny Wurts' book. So January. You get the moniker. So, yep, January for me. I plan to read 3 of her books. The 3 books that I have on my shelves from her that are part of her backlist that I haven't read, and they are my most anticipated books of the year because I love Jenny Wirtz. I love her writing. Her prose is just something that transports me somewhere else, and that prose is the key to my heart. So, without further ado, let's look at the books. So, Storm Warden. I got these at a wonderful used bookstore near where I live. And this is book 1 in the Cycle of Fire. It's a trilogy. And Storm Warden is the first book. Beautiful cover. I mean, Jenny Wirtz, just if you're not aware, she's also a world-class artist and does her own covers. Most of her covers, I believe, either herself or her husband, Don Mates, who is also a world-class artist. You believe it, so much talent in one family. But yeah, this is just—it's absolutely stunning. Like the artwork it's glorious. So this book 1, Storm Warden, and this is book 2, Keeper of the Keys. I do not have the 3rd book in the series, but I will be picking it up. But they form part of the books that I want to read the most this year. And again, it's Jenny Wirtz, of course, again, my favorite author. And the 3rd book from her, it's a standalone, and it is Sorcerer's Legacy, another stunningly beautiful book. This is her debut. And it's, I think it's going to be so fascinating to read my favorite author's first book, see what the difference is in craft, in style, perhaps a bit, from where she wound up with finishing up her magnum opus, The Words of Light and Shadow, decades later. So I'm so excited for these books. I cannot wait. These will be among some of the first books that I read next year in January 2026. So we have Storm Warden, once again. We have The Keeper of the Keys, and those 2 are part of the Cycle of Fire. And then this is a standalone, her very first book, Sorcerer's Legacy. So that's among the first books I plan to read next year that are science fiction and fantasy and traditionally published. Then we have another one of my favorite authors and another brilliant author, another iconic author. Jenny Wirtz, of course, is an author who has been a huge influence on me and my own writing. This is another author that I can say the same about. Someone who needs no introduction like Jenny. And this is Mark Lawrence. He of the self-published fantasy blog off. He's orchestrated that amazing science fiction and fantasy writing contest. He's done so much great for the community. Another wonderful individual. It's so easy to root for someone who's a brilliant writer as well as a wonderful person. So Mark is certainly that. Had the honor of meeting him in person. Jenny, of course, Jenny Wirtz is, I consider, a personal friend of mine. And Mark is amazing. And Mark is also someone who's, very accessible and approachable, and as is Jenny. And it's just so nice when, you get to meet your heroes and they're just wonderful people. So I can say that about both Jenny and Mark. So Mark Lawrence, I've read 2 trilogies from him. I've read the Red Queen's War, and I've read I've read 3 trilogies. I'm sorry. I've read Red Queen's War. I have read the Broken Empire trilogy, and what is the other Mark Lawrence trilogy I have read? I can't believe I can't remember. Oh, Book of the Ancestor. I've read Book of the Ancestor. Those are 3 trilogies I've read from Mark Lawrence. So now I'm about to go on to my 4th Mark Lawrence series. So probably one of the authors I've read the most from in terms of their body work. And this time it's his book series. And then we have, again, beautiful covers. We have The Girl and the Stars and The Girl and the Mountain. So I have the first 2 books of this series, Book of Ice. I don't have the 3rd. However, I will get it at some point. But the goal is this year to read both of these sometime early in 2026. And Mark Lawrence, fabulous author, like Jenny Wirtz, writes the darkness and the light brilliantly. So really looking forward to getting into this series. I hear it's fabulous. So once again, Mark Lawrence, The Book of Ice, and I'll be reading The Girl and the Stars and The Girl and the Mountain. Another, it seems like my traditionally published science fiction and fantasy TBR for 2026 is jam-packed full of authors who need no introduction and are iconic. Behind me, you will see Malazan Book of the Fallen. I finished that series last year or this year? This year, sorry. I apologize. I finished it this year. And I read the last 4 or 5 books. What an experience. Absolutely amazing. Hey, it's Timothy. What's up, buddy? How's it going? Timothy Wolf, brilliant author, phenomenal person. Check out his series. When I do my TBR for 2026 for indie books, Tim's whole series will figure prominently. But you're going to have to wait for that. Timothy, always great to see you, my friend. It's always a good day when I get to see Timothy. And again, he's a brilliant author. Really enjoying his main series. Now, he is also a finalist for and I'm going to mess up the acronym, the self-published science fiction novella contest. Anyways, The Whisper That Replaced God is really a book that's blown up in that side of, indie science fiction, because it's science fiction. So yeah, check out Timothy's work. He's an amazing fella and a great author. Honored to know him. So thanks, Timothy, for stopping by. So back to the list. Another author that needs no introduction. The author of Malazan Book of the Fallen, Steven Erikson, and this is The God Is Not Willing. So this is part of, I believe, the next series that Steven Erikson wrote after Malazan Book of the Fallen. So this is the Witness trilogy. Steven Erikson, after binge reading Malazan, I could not wait to get back to Steven Erikson's writing. It is addictive. Love it. Can't wait to start this. I only have the one book in the series. I think the next one just came out, and a lot of people are starting to put it up on their booktube videos and raving about it, I hear, but I'm way behind. But I'm gonna get to this hopefully this year. The God Is Not Willing by Steven Erikson, and I'm sure that I will enjoy it. We all know Malazan Book of the Fallen, the reputation. It's dark. Again, we talked about the beauty and the darkness and the light, the pain and the joy. Steven Erikson's writing is indicative of that. He does it so well, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he does with this other series. Tim says that, awesome, you plan some red 100% mood radar. Nothing wrong with that, my friend. That's a good thing. And there's room even within a TBR, of course, and I do it myself, to make time for your mood reads, right? If that's what you'd like to do. So that is absolutely a good thing. Nothing wrong with that, Tim. So, all right, so on to the rest of the TBR. Again, I said this TBR is jam-packed of authors who are very well known, very heralded, need no introduction. The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. So let's get the elephant out of the room. I frankly avoided reading The Wise Man's Fear, Book 2 in Kingkiller Chronicles. Why? Because unfortunately this is a series for whatever reasons. And again, this is not, and I do want us to kind of, again, we get the elephant in the room that, an author writes their books when they write their books. There's a variety of reasons why an author may not continue a series or get to series within the time frame that we, as the fans who love their work, want them to get these books pumped out. We all know that Patrick Rothfuss has not finished the series. We all know that the books, there's been quite the gaps between books being written and published. However, The Name of the Wind, the first book in this series, is iconic. I love The Name of the Wind. I will wear my love of The Name of the Wind on my sleeve. But I will also admit that I purposely was not rushing to get to this book because obviously the series is not complete and this is only book 2. I'll be getting to this book this year. It is something that I had planned to do for a long time, but I think it's time. It's been sitting on my shelf, as I said, it's part of the unread pile. I love the first book. It is iconic. There's no reason why I should wait any longer. So I see Timothy says that he has avoided Kingkiller for years the same reason. Eventually to read it, brush up on first person. Yeah, and that's an excellent point, Timothy. The first person perspective, I think that Ruffus writes from is absolutely stunning. His prose is stunning, and I think that's the main thing that attracts people to this series. Yes, the story of the coming of age, etc., and this character that is some people might say arrogant, some people might say unreliable, some people might say but the character himself of Kool, he's iconic, I believe. So it's time to get to this. I will get to this. The Wise Man's Fear, another very acclaimed author on my TBR for traditionally published fantasy and science fiction. Another book, another author that needs no introduction. One of the most famous science fiction books and authors of all time. Dune. I think Mike's book reviews would probably not speak to me again if he knew that I actually hadn't read this book. Maybe my card would be revoked to him. But yeah, I haven't read Dune. And why? I'm not really sure. Always meant to get around to it. This copy's been sitting on my shelf for quite a while. But with the popularity of the movies, with the fact that this is, put up there on the pantheon of fabulous science fiction books, hey, it's time. So I plan to get to Dune this year. Not much to say about it. I don't think there's much that I could say that hasn't been already said much better about what this book is all about. So heavy on the political intrigue, central main character, Paul Atreides, who is a messianic figure. It's again, the movies are with Timothée Chalamet are very popular and highly regarded. I will get to Dune at some point this year, and very much looking forward to seeing what the long time hype has been all about. I keep saying this, authors that need no introduction. N.K. Jemisin, probably one of the most highly decorated fantasy authors in recent years, in terms of Nebula, Locust, etc. This is one of her famed series, the Broken Earth trilogy, and the first book being the fifth season. So again, author I've read several books from. I haven't finished any of those other series either, but I will. But this one has been sitting on my shelf for a while. Want to get it off the list. Need to read it so I can get to the rest of the series. It starts here. N.K. Jemisin, again, actually astounding author, and this is I believe it's the Hugo Award 2016. So again, another author that needs no introduction, that comes with a certain amount of credentials that are impeccable. So I will get to the fifth season at some point in 2026. Probably the last of the authors that has a certain level of acclaim because of their body of work, etc. Someone who was a lot of your current favorite author's favorite author, that puts them up, on a pedestal. David Gemmell, Hawk Queen Omnibus. David Gemmell, famous for his heroism, his action scenes, his characters. I think people tell me that as close to, if you like John Gwynne, and John Gwynne, I believe, David Gemmell was one of his favorite authors. This is where, this is one of the authors you read as well. I have not read anything by him. That's, something I want to rectify this year. I think his writing is known for being, fast-paced action, really great characters, gritty heroism, dark. So I think I'm gonna definitely enjoy this. So David Gemmell, Hawk Queen Omnibus, a collection of stories. Okay, so while these authors may not be as well known, and sorry, I'm just going to put up Timothy's comment that he said, didn't enjoy the fifth season, but prose is super unique. Okay, Thanks. Yeah, I've heard mixed reviews. To be honest, Timothy, I concur. However, I have loved a couple other things by N.K. Jemisin, so I'm hoping that this is also one. But I am going to, like I said, I'm gonna give it a try and see how it goes. But again, she is an iconic author and highly regarded. Um, so now, perhaps these are some of these authors a bit lesser known. However, that doesn't mean the books aren't going to be amazing. This one, I don't know much about it, but Mark Lawrence, who one of my favorite authors, that his books I talked about earlier, he actually has an endorsement on this book. He says, and the endorsement from Mark Lawrence is, I've read a lot of good books, quite a few very good books. This is one of the rare 6-star series openers I've encountered. Very, very high praise from Mark Lawrence. And this is Master Assassins. It's book one of, and I'm going to try and see if I can find the series here. If it is a series, and I might mistake it. So forgive me, Robert V.S. Reddick, if this is not a series, but I believe it is. I'll have to find the name. But if it is, and I don't know, I honestly don't know a whole lot about this. I hear it's praised as being fabulous, not just from Mark Lawrence. I also see that, Patrick Rothfuss, again, another very well regarded author I just spoke about in his books. Like, he also endorses this book. He says this book has everything I love, and he has a front cover quote. So clearly there must be something to this book that is worth the try. So I hope to get to this at some point. I also believe that either this book was recommended to me by the author themselves, or this was an ARC sent by the author. I can't remember which. I hear Robert V.S. Reddick is awesome. I think I've interacted with him in the past. And if it's the person I'm thinking about, he does seem awesome. You have to forgive me. This has been on my shelf for like a really long time. I'm ashamed of how long it's been on my shelf. It was published in 2017 or 18, I think. I think it's been on my shelf that long. Probably one of the longest I'll say any reads on my shelf, but I am going to get to it. And it sounds fabulous. And some remarkable authors have praised it highly. So there you go. We're getting near the end here. So the next book, again, I'm very much ashamed. I think the author is actually a fabulous person. Interacted so much on social media. Just wonderful. She's just brilliant. I really enjoyed the first book in the series. It's a travesty I haven't got back to the series. The series name is very similar to my own. I think our books came out around the same time. My series, of course, is the Drowned Kingdom Saga. Hers is the Drowning Empire, and that is Andrea Stewart. And this is the Bone Charred Emperor, book 2 in Drowning Empire. So Bone Charred Daughter was a book I read several years ago now. Thought it was fabulous. Thought the series had so much promise. Bought the second book, never got back to it. So it's time. Look at these stunning covers too. I mean, it's amazing. And again, Andrea is wonderful. And I can't say enough about her as a person. If you follow her on social media, she's someone fabulous to follow as well. And this book, again, highly regarded. You have people like Sarah J. Maas endorsing it, Alex E. Harrow, Tasha Suri. Again, a brilliant author, really well regarded. And why I haven't gotten back to this, I can't tell you. Just busy TBR. You know the bane of the TBR. But anyways, getting to that this year and hopefully finishing the series soon as well. I believe it's a trilogy. So the Drowning Empire. And the final book that I have lined up is from someone I've had the privilege of meeting in person. She is such a lovely, lovely person. Amazing. Blessed to know her as well. Last time I saw her was in Seattle, Worldcon. First time I met her, Deb and I, my wife, we met her, was at Worldcon in Glasgow the previous year. Her stuff is blowing up, man. She just recently signed a huge book deal with Head of Zeus, and that includes TV, rights. So you might see her works on the small screen sometime in the future. Love her Gale song. So she's doing the Sanderson thing with the whole era 1, era 2. I plan to read everything she writes. Love her books. I'm going to be speaking to her on Six Elemental interviews in the new year. I'm going to have that honor as well. That is Shauna Lawless. And this book is Daughter of the Otherworld. And stunning cover. Absolutely stunning. Again, she's got some luminaries such as Mark Lawrence again, and Anna Smith Spark, another author that I think is fabulous. Anthony Ryan, another very well-known and high-regarded author, all endorsing this book. And again, the cover is stunning. I expect this to be, poignant and great in terms of the historical fiction, as is the rest of Gale's Song. I'm really looking forward to that. I'm privileged that. Thank you, Shauna, for having the publisher send me that book. It is beautiful, and I can't wait to get to it sometime next year for sure. Timothy says, "Yep, we did the same thing. We both shared like 3 years ago. We got that in common, my friend. I have no excuse. I should have gotten back to that book so long ago, but I just didn't. So, and you can say that about all these books. Why haven't I read some of these books already? Like that's it, that's on me. It's on no one else but me. So, but the goal is to get to them in 2026, along with all of the incredible indie science fiction and fantasy books that I have for my indie TBR that I will make a separate video about in the coming days and weeks, and I will put that up as well, so you can put those two together and then add whatever arcs that, of course, you won't know how many I have, but add those, and so that compilation will be what I plan to read in 2026. And again, the caveat once more: TBRs are aspirational. As Timmy talked about mood reading, that can also play a role. I'm not much of a mood reader, however, sometimes things come up and they call to you, and or just things are a priority because of other reasons, because the author's doing a release, or you're doing an interviewed author and you want to read their book prior to the interview. So those are things that play factors for me that can affect and add volatility to my TBR. But in the event, that is my quick video. Well, maybe not so quick. It's somewhere in half an hour on my science fiction and fantasy traditionally published books that I want to read in 2026. Timothy Wolf, you're a gentleman and scholar. Thank you so much for coming out. Again, when I do that indie TBR video, Timothy's books are going to feature prominently on there. I have quite a few books that I've also been so humbled that he sent to me. So I want to finish his series this year coming up as well in 2026, and I have the rest of the book. So hopefully I can get that done. And thank you anyone who's on Team Replay and will watch this later. And I guess I will see you back with the video for my indie books that I plan to read next year. Timothy, you have a good one too, my friend, and everyone else. Take care.